Pennsylvania's rolling hills and river valleys hold secrets far older than its colonial history. Beneath its forests and farmland lie traces of vanished civilizations, mysterious carvings, lost tunnels, and ancient legends that defy explanation. From prehistoric forts to petroglyphs and giant skeletons, the Keystone State hides mysteries that still challenge our understanding of America's past. The mystery of the Meadowcroft Rock Shelter. If you follow the winding roads of southwestern Pennsylvania, not far from the Ohio border, you'll find a quiet hillside overlooking Cross Creek. It's the kind of place you'd drive past without a second thought. Thick woods, rocky outcrops, the steady sound of water running through the valley. But hidden here, tucked beneath a sandstone overhang, lies one of the most remarkable and mysterious archaeological sites in North America, the Meadowcroft Rock Shelter. At first glance, it doesn't look like much, just a small, natural alcove cut into a hillside. But what's buried beneath its sandy floor tells a story that challenges everything we thought we knew about when humans first arrived on this continent. Meadowcroft is not only old, it's ancient. Some evidence from this site suggests humans may have lived here more than 16,000 years ago, long before the last ice age fully ended. The story begins in 1955 when a local farmer named Albert Miller stumbled across the rock shelter on his family's land near Avella, Pennsylvania. He was clearing brush and noticed a small hole in the hillside, partly concealed by trees. Inside, he found stone tools and bits of pottery poking out of the ground. Miller, fascinated but not trained in archaeology, recognized this might be something special. He carefully noted where the artifacts were and waited. It wasn't until the 1970s that professional archaeologists from the University of Pittsburgh arrived to begin a full excavation. What they uncovered would rewrite American prehistory. Layer by layer, the soil revealed an unbroken timeline of human occupation. Fire pits, stone flakes, animal bones, and woven fibers, stacked like pages in a history book that reached back thousands of years. When radiocarbon dating results came in, they stunned the scientific world. Some layers were nearly 16,000 years old. That was long before the famous Clovis culture, which for decades had been considered the earliest known civilization in North America. Meadowcroft, if accurate, meant people had been living in Pennsylvania at least 2,000 years before the Clovis hunters roamed the plains. Naturally, that claim drew heavy skepticism. Many scientists thought the dates couldn't possibly be right. Some argued that the site must have been contaminated. Maybe ancient carbon seeped in from nearby coal deposits, or older materials got mixed into newer layers. But after years of testing and debate, Meadowcroft's results held up. Multiple labs confirmed the dates. The layers were stable, sealed by natural sediments, with no evidence of modern contamination. Gradually, the academic community began to accept what once seemed unthinkable. People were in Pennsylvania before the Ice Age ended, so who were they? That's where the mystery deepens. Archaeologists found stone tools at Meadowcroft, but they didn't match the distinctive fluted spear points of the later Clovis culture. These were smaller, more refined, made with a different technique. Whoever lived here seemed to have their own way of surviving. They hunted deer and small game, fished the nearby creeks, and gathered nut seeds and wild fruits. Their fires left black stains on the stone ceiling, and tiny fragments of bone show they were skilled at using every part of the animal. It's easy to picture it. Families huddled near the fire during cold winters, smoke drifting out of the shelter's mouth, the crackle of wood echoing through the valley. In spring, the creek below would swell with meltwater, bringing fish and fresh life. For those who called it home, this was a perfect refuge, protected from wind, close to food and water, and hidden within the landscape. The site also suggests something more complex: continuity. People didn't just live here once, they returned generation after generation for over 10,000 years. The upper layers show transitions to later tools, pottery fragments, and even contact-era trade goods. It's as if this one small rock shelter quietly witnessed the entire story of human life in North America unfold, from Ice Age hunters to the early native tribes who eventually met European settlers. But Meadowcroft's greatest puzzle remains the question of how these first people got here. If the site really is 16,000 years old, it challenges the long-held theory that humans entered North America by walking across the Bering Land Bridge around 13,000 years ago. Did they arrive even earlier, following an ice-free corridor along the Pacific coast? Or did small groups migrate from elsewhere, perhaps even across the Atlantic from Ice Age Europe, as some controversial theories suggest? No one knows for sure. Meadowcroft doesn't offer direct clues about migration routes, but its age forces researchers to reconsider the timeline entirely. It proves that humans were capable of adapting to harsh climates, exploring new territories, and thriving in environments thought uninhabitable. For archaeologists, it's not just an excavation site. It's a question mark carved into the history of human exploration. Visiting Meadowcroft today feels like stepping into two worlds at once. The site has been carefully preserved under a massive protective roof, with walkways allowing visitors to peer down into the exposed layers of ancient soil. Standing there, you can see each stratum clearly marked centuries of life, compressed into a few meters of earth. Tour guides explain what each layer means, pointing out charcoal flecks or the dark stains of ancient hearths. It's humbling to think that every inch beneath your feet represents hundreds of years of someone's existence. Outside the rock shelter, the Meadowcroft Rock Shelter and Historic Village recreates life across different eras, from prehistoric camps to 19th century frontier homes. Children learn how people hunted with stone tools or how native peoples built shelters from bark and animal hides. But there's a quiet energy in the air near the original rock shelter itself, a sense that this place still holds secrets. The breeze through the trees sounds much like it must have 16,000 years ago, and the air feels unusually still. Some visitors say the site carries an almost spiritual weight. It's not haunted in the ghostly sense, but it feels like the ground remembers. Archaeologists describe moments when the past feels close. The smell of charred bone, the texture of stone worn smooth by ancient hands. For a place that looks so ordinary, it has an uncanny ability to stir the imagination. Over time, Meadowcroft has become more than just an archaeological landmark. It's a symbol of how much we still don't know about our own origins. Every discovery there reminds us that history is not fixed. It's constantly being rewritten by the things we dig up, the questions we ask, and the assumptions we're willing to challenge. Standing at the edge of the rock shelter, it's easy to picture the first people who ever stood there, maybe watching mammoths cross the frozen valley, or kindling a fire as the wind swept snow into the trees. They couldn't have known that tens of thousands of years later, others would be standing in the same spot, wondering who they were and where they came from. Today, the site remains one of the most carefully studied prehistoric locations in the country, and yet its mysteries persist. The radiocarbon dates are still debated by a few holdouts. New discoveries elsewhere in places like South America and Alaska continue to add layers to the story. But whether or not Meadowcroft's earliest dates are exactly right, its importance is undisputed. It proves that human history in North America is far older and more complex than once believed. When you leave the shelter and walk back through the forest trail, there's a moment when the sounds of the modern world fade away. All you hear is the wind, the creak, and the faint rustle of leaves. It feels ancient, familiar, and strangely alive, as if the past is still whispering somewhere beneath the soil. And that's the real mystery of Meadowcroft, not just when humans came here, but why this place above all others was chosen and remembered for so long. The Cornwall Iron Furnace Tunnels. In the quiet town of Cornwall, Pennsylvania, there's a place that looks straight out of an early industrial painting. Tall stone walls, iron gates, and the faint scent of rust lingering in the air. This is the Cornwall Iron Furnace, one of the best preserved examples of early American industry. Built in the mid-1700s, it once fueled a growing nation with cannonballs, tools, and rails. But beneath this impressive furnace lies something far stranger than its industrial past, an underground world of tunnels whose true purpose remains unclear even after centuries. Most visitors who come here see the surface story, a beautifully restored blast furnace complex with charcoal houses and casting sheds that operated through the Revolutionary War and well into the 19th century. They hear about Peter Grubb, the ironmaster who founded the operation in 1742, and the Grubb family empire that followed. They learn how tons of iron ore was smelted with charcoal and limestone, poured into molds, and sent off to build the new nation. But what most don't realize is that deep below their feet lies a labyrinth of tunnels, chambers, and shafts that were never fully mapped and whose origins have sparked debate for generations. The tunnels were first stumbled upon by workers in the late 1800s. They were digging near one of the older sections of the furnace when the ground gave way, revealing a narrow stone corridor descending into the earth. Local miners assumed it was an old ventilation shaft or drainage channel left over from early operations, but the deeper they went, the less it resembled any typical industrial passage. The walls were cut too precisely, the turns too deliberate. Some tunnels didn't seem to lead anywhere at all, ending abruptly in smoothed-out dead ends. Over time, more of these hidden corridors came to light. Some connected to ore pits, others running beneath the foundry itself, and a few stretching toward the nearby hills. No one could explain why so many were built, especially since some were clearly older than the furnace above them. The ironworks records mention no large-scale tunneling projects before the mid-18th century. That gap in the timeline raised a haunting question. What was here before Cornwall Furnace was ever built? Local lore began to fill in the blanks. One story claimed the tunnels were ancient, possibly built by native peoples long before Europeans arrived, used as ceremonial spaces or for storing sacred objects. Others suggested early settlers dug them for mining experiments or as escape routes during conflicts with native tribes. Then there were the stranger theories, that the tunnels connected to natural caverns beneath the region or even to hidden chambers where fire spirits were said to dwell, feeding the iron with supernatural energy. By the early 20th century, the legends had taken root. Teenagers dared each other to sneak into the forbidden tunnels after dark. Some claimed they heard faint hammering sounds deep underground long after the furnaces had gone cold. Others reported strange symbols etched into the stone, spirals, triangles, and marks that didn't match any known miners' signs. Whether those carvings were ancient colonial or just graffiti, no one could say for sure. In the 1960s, archaeologists and state historians began to take a closer look. Ground surveys revealed that the tunnels formed a pattern almost like spokes radiating from a central point beneath the main furnace stack. But when they tried to trace the layout, they ran into collapses, flooded chambers and walls that seemed to seal off deeper sections. One team used ground-penetrating radar and found hollow spaces far below the known tunnels, too deep to have been practical for 18th century ironworks. That discovery only added to the mystery. Some researchers think the tunnels could have served as primitive ventilation shafts for the blast furnace. Others believe they were part of a hidden ore transport system, perhaps an unfinished project abandoned after a collapse. But the sheer precision of the older stonework suggests something else entirely. The lower sections, those believed to predate the furnace, appear almost ceremonial. Smooth, rounded chambers with niches carved into the walls, positioned in ways that don't make engineering sense. There's also the matter of the local folklore connecting the furnace to older pre-colonial legends, before the Grubb family established their iron empire. The land around Cornwall was home to native peoples who mined hematite and magnetite for pigments and tools. Some early settlers recorded hearing stories of spirit mines where the earth glowed at night, guarded by powerful beings. It's tempting to link those tales to the tunnels beneath the furnace, especially since early workers reported strange lights flickering underground and unexplainable noises during the night shifts. By the 1970s, when the site became a state historical landmark, most of the tunnels were sealed for safety, but curiosity never really went away. Urban explorers occasionally slipped through locked gates or old drainage entrances, hoping to find proof of something more ancient below. A few have shared eerie accounts, cold pockets of air that seem to move on their own footsteps echoing when no one else is there, the feeling of being watched in total darkness. None of it can be verified, but it fits with the furnace's reputation as a place where industry, myth, and mystery overlap. What gives the story a deeper layer is how perfectly the mystery mirrors Pennsylvania's history itself, where European ambition was built directly over ancient landscapes once sacred to others. The Cornwall furnace is a symbol of progress and power, but beneath that foundation might lie remnants of something older and forgotten. Whether those tunnels were sacred chambers, secret mine passages, or something else entirely, they remind us that history often has two layers, the one we can see and the one buried beneath it. Today, the Cornwall iron furnace stands silent. The furnaces are cold, the workers long gone, replaced by tour guides and school groups. You can still smell the faint tang of iron when the air is damp and hear the echoes of your own footsteps in the casting room. But the real intrigue lies in what you can't visit, the sealed passages below. Some historians still believe new technology could one day map the entire underground network, finally revealing what's down there. Others prefer to leave it be, suggesting that disturbing those tunnels might destroy whatever traces remain of an earlier world. Standing on the furnace grounds today, it's hard not to wonder what's hiding beneath your feet. Maybe it's just stone, water, and forgotten shafts, or maybe those early miners stumbled into something they couldn't explain, something that predates even the idea of Pennsylvania itself. When the last tour ends and the gates close, the furnace settles back into silence. The tunnels below remain untouched, their purpose still unknown, dark corridors of history that refuse to give up their secrets. The Chickees Rock petroglyphs, high above the Susquehanna River near Columbia, Pennsylvania, a massive outcrop of dark quartzite rises from the forested hills. Locals call it Chickees Rock, from the Lenape word Chickasalunga, meaning place of the crayfish. It's a popular hiking spot now. Families come for the view, rock climbers test their grip on its sheer cliffs, and couples watch the sunset from the overlook. But few of those visitors realize that just below the surface of this peaceful spot lies one of the state's strangest and most enduring mysteries. A set of ancient carvings etched into the bedrock, the Chickees Rock petroglyphs. These carvings, scattered along the Susquehanna's rocky banks, are among the oldest known in the northeastern United States. They sit close to the waterline, some half submerged depending on river levels, others hidden behind moss and lichen. To the casual eye, they look like simple scratches, circles, spirals, and stick-like figures. But to archaeologists, they represent an enigmatic window into a culture that left no written record and whose spiritual life remains mostly unknown. The first reports of these petroglyphs date back to the 1800s, when local farmers and fishermen noticed strange markings on the rocks near the base of the cliffs. By the early 1900s, the Pennsylvania Historical Commission had documented dozens of carvings along a 15-mile stretch of river between Safe Harbor and Columbia. Chickees Rock quickly became one of the most concentrated sites. The designs ranged from human-like figures and animals to geometric shapes and what some called solar symbols, radiating circles that looked like suns or stars. No one could agree who carved them. Some believed they were made by the Susquehannock or their ancestors, a people who thrived along this river valley centuries before Europeans arrived. Others thought they were older still, may be created by unknown tribes that lived here thousands of years ago before recorded native history. The problem is, there's no reliable way to date petroglyphs directly. Unlike pottery or tools, carvings on rock don't contain organic material for radiocarbon testing. So the age of Chickies Rock's carvings remains uncertain. They could be 500 years old or 5,000. The Susquehannock themselves were known to revere the river as sacred. To them, it was a living spirit, the lifeblood of the valley. It's easy to imagine why ancient peoples would carve symbols into the rocks along its edge. Places where water meets stone often held spiritual power. Some archaeologists believe the petroglyphs were part of ritual practices, offerings, prayers, or records of significant events. The recurring motifs of hands, circles, and animal tracks may have represented life cycles, hunting magic, or even star maps aligning with the solstices. But there's something else about Chickies Rock that fuels deeper speculation. A few of the carvings don't resemble traditional native motifs at all. Early surveyors noted crosses, angular lines, and even shapes that looked like boats or oars. Strange, given that such symbols don't match local tribal art. Some fringe theorists went as far as to claim that these marks were evidence of pre-Columbian visitors from across the ocean, Vikings, Celts, or even early European explorers. That theory isn't taken seriously by archaeologists, but it persists partly because of how mysterious and isolated these carvings are. What's undeniable is the feeling of age and gravity they hold. Standing by the water on a quiet morning when mist rolls over the river and the only sound is the slow lap of waves against stone, it's easy to feel like time folds in on itself. The same river current that carried canoes centuries ago still flows past. The same rock faces that ancient artists chipped away at still bear their marks. And yet, no one alive today truly understands what those symbols meant. Over the years, weather and vandalism have taken a heavy toll. Rising water levels from dams downstream have submerged some carvings completely. Others have been damaged by graffiti or natural erosion. In the 1970s, archaeologists from the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission made detailed tracings and photographs of every visible petroglyph they could find, preserving a record in case the originals disappeared. Many of those tracings are now stored at the State Museum in Harrisburg. Delicate imprints of messages carved by hands long gone. Some of the most distinctive carvings at Chickies Rock include spiral suns, large open hands, and animal tracks, possibly deer or bear prints. One famous panel, known locally as the Council Rock, shows a group of human-like figures surrounding a central circle. Some researchers think it depicts a ritual or a meeting. Others see it as a map, perhaps marking villages or hunting territories along the river. The lack of written language leaves it all open to interpretation. What fascinates many is how these symbols connect with other sites along the Susquehanna. From Safe Harbor to Bald Friar, dozens of petroglyph clusters have been found, often sharing the same recurring imagery. It's as if the entire river once served as a sacred corridor, linking different communities through shared belief and art. Chickies Rock, with its commanding height and panoramic view, may have been a central gathering place, a kind of prehistoric cathedral in stone. Local native traditions, though fragmented by centuries of displacement, hint that certain rocks along the river were talking stones, places where messages to the spirits were left. Shamans might have used them to communicate with the forces of nature, marking the stone during ceremonies to honor the river, the sun, or the animal spirits. Some modern indigenous elders believe the carvings still hold energy and that they shouldn't be disturbed or removed. Visiting Chickies Rock. Today it's hard to separate myth from history. The main overlook draws tourists for the sweeping view of the Susquehanna. But if you venture lower toward the waterline on the Columbia side, you can still glimpse faint carvings on the dark rock when the light hits just right. Most are protected now, and guided tours occasionally take visitors to safe vantage points during low water. The air down there is cool and damp, filled with the earthy smell of moss and riverstone. Every mark feels deliberate, every line purposeful, as though whoever made them wanted their message to outlast the centuries. The mystery of Chickies Rock isn't just about what the symbols mean, but why they were made here in this precise place. There's something magnetic about the site. The cliffs rise almost 200 feet above the river, and when the sun sets, the rock glows with a faint copper hue. From the top, you can see miles of rolling hills, forests, and winding water, a landscape that would have inspired both awe and reverence in ancient times. It's easy to imagine gatherings held here at twilight, people drumming and chanting, while the symbols below caught the flicker of firelight. In the end, the carvings are both message and mystery, fragments of human expression preserved by chance and stone. They remind us that before steel mills and train bridges, this land belonged to people who saw meaning in every rock, river, and shadow. Their voices are gone, but their art remains, whispering across the water. Today, Chickies Rock is a state park, and the petroglyphs are officially protected. Visitors are urged not to touch or trace them, to let them age naturally. There's talk of creating 3D digital scans to preserve their form forever. But part of their power lies in their fragility. The sense that these ancient carvings survive only by grace of time and respect. Standing at the overlook, as the sun dips behind the ridge, you can feel both the weight of history and the hum of the present. The same rock that ancient artists touched now supports rail lines and cell towers in the valley below. Yet for all our technology, we still can't decode what they were saying. That silence, that gap between knowing and wondering, is what makes the Chickies Rock petroglyphs so haunting. They don't just show us that people lived here long ago. They remind us that mystery itself is part of what it means to be human. The Nittany Lion legends. In the heart of Pennsylvania, between gentle ridges and rolling farmland, stands Mount Nittany, a long forested ridge that looms protectively over Penn State University and the town of State College. To most people today, Nittany means the Nittany Lion, the proud mascot of the university. Students pose by the limestone statue, fans chant the name at football games, and the image appears on everything from jerseys to coffee mugs. But behind that familiar symbol lies a far older story, one rooted in native legend, early settler folklore, and the idea that something powerful once watched over this valley long before there was a college here at all. The legend of the Nittany Lion begins centuries before Penn State existed, when this part of Pennsylvania was wilderness, a land of deep woods, clear creeks, and mountain mist. The earliest stories come from the Lenape and other tribes who lived in the region. They spoke of a great mountain spirit that took the form of a lion, not the African kind, but a massive eastern cougar, a creature that roamed the ridges and valleys, guarding the people who lived here. This guardian was called Nittany, or Nit-a-Nee, depending on the version, a name said to mean single mountain or protective spirit. According to one popular telling, the story centers around a young native woman named Nittany and her forbidden love. She fell in love with a warrior from a rival tribe, and when their love was discovered, the couple fled into the wilderness. The girl's father sent hunters to pursue them. They were captured, and her lover was slain. Overcome with grief, Nittany prayed to the Great Spirit to keep his memory alive forever. The ground trembled, and a mountain rose where she stood, Mount Nittany, to remind the people of their love and her courage. Some versions say her spirit still lives in the mountain, guarding the valley below. Later versions of the story added a new element, a lion spirit that appeared to protect Nittany's people. This lion became a symbol of bravery and guardianship, defending the valley whenever danger approached. When settlers came to the area in the 1700s, they heard these tales and began calling the surrounding land Nittany Valley. The cougar or mountain lion was still common then, a silent, shadowy predator that roamed Pennsylvania's forests. To early farmers and hunters, it was both feared and respected, an animal that seemed to belong more to myth than to flesh and bone. By the late 1800s, however, the eastern cougar had nearly vanished from the region. Deforestation and overhunting drove it to extinction. The forests grew quieter, but the legend of the Nittany lion didn't fade. Instead, it transformed. When Penn State was founded in 1855 as the Farmers' High School of Pennsylvania, the surrounding community still spoke of Mount Nittany as a sacred or mysterious place. Students would hike its slopes and talk about the spirit lion said to guard them. The legend had become a symbol of protection and pride, passed from native lore to frontier myth to collegiate identity. The Nittany lion we know today owes its modern shape to one man, Harrison Joe Mason, a student who in 1904 realized Penn State lacked a mascot. While visiting Princeton, he saw their famous tiger emblem and decided his school needed a creature just as noble. Drawing from the old mountain legend, he chose the Nittany lion, a fierce but local guardian that represented courage and independence. The name stuck immediately. Within a few years, the Nittany lion had become the heart of Penn State's spirit, a link between the modern university and the wild past of the land it stood on. Still, the deeper folklore never disappeared. Locals in Center County continued to whisper about strange sounds on Mount Nittany at night, deep, throaty growls echoing through the trees. Hikers claim to see fleeting shadows in the moonlight, too large for bobcats and too silent for deer. The Pennsylvania Game Commission insists the eastern cougar is extinct, but occasional reports of large tawny cats persist even today. Whether those are escaped pets, western mountain lions wandering east, or something else entirely, no one can say. But for those who grew up in the valley, those sightings always lead back to one thought. Maybe the Nittany lion still watches over its mountain. Mount Nittany itself is a place that feels ancient. The trail to the summit winds through thick oak and pine forest, climbing steadily to rocky overlooks that give panoramic views of the entire valley. From the top, you can see Penn State's campus spread below like a model city, tidy, sunlit, surrounded by the folds of blue-green hills. It's easy to understand why early people would see it as sacred. The mountain seems alive. On windy days, the treetops roar like an ocean, and you can almost hear whispers carried on the air, something between wind and voice. Local folklore says that as long as the mountain stands, Penn State will thrive. When developers once proposed cutting part of it for quarrying, students and alumni organized massive protests. The movement to protect Mount Nittany became a rallying point for community identity. In 1945, the Mount Nittany Conservancy was formed, ensuring that the mountain and the spirit that supposedly guards it would never be lost to industry. Even now, the group maintains the trails and forests, keeping the legend alive in a very literal way. There are other subtler layers to the Nittany story. Some historians suggest that Nittany may have been a real person, a leader or healer among her people, whose name was later mythologized. Others think the entire tale was an early romantic invention, inspired by similar native legends from the Great Lakes and adapted to Pennsylvania's landscape. But whether historical or not, the myth feels rooted in something real. The human instinct to give meaning to the land, to imagine guardians watching over the places we love. In that sense, the Nittany lion legend is more than folklore. It's a conversation between generations. It links the Lenape, the settlers, and the modern Penn State community through a single enduring symbol of protection and pride. The story changes shape over time, but its heart remains the same. The belief that this valley is special, watched over by something powerful, whether spirit, mountain, or memory. Today, if you visit the limestone Nittany Lion Shrine on campus, it feels almost reverent. The statue, sculpted in 1942 by Heinz Warnecke, has become one of the most photographed landmarks in Pennsylvania. People touch its paw for good luck before exams, weddings, and big games. But beyond the stone and ceremony, it carries something older, a whisper of the ancient guardian whose spirit is said to live in the hills above. At night, when the campus grows quiet and the valley falls under the weight of stars, you can still look toward Mount Nittany and imagine the silhouette of a great cat watching from the ridge. Maybe it's only imagination. Or maybe, as the old Lenape believed, the spirit of Nit-Ani and her lion still linger, keeping watch over the valley she once loved. Whether myth, memory, or metaphor, the Nittany lion endures as more than a mascot. It's a reminder that every place, no matter how modern it seems, has roots deep in mystery. Beneath the roar of the crowds and the flash of stadium lights, there's still that quiet, ancient heartbeat. The mountain, the guardian, and the legend that refuses to fade, the lost fort of the Monongahela. If you drive through western Pennsylvania today, you'll see gentle green hills, wide rivers, and quiet towns scattered across the landscape. But beneath that calm surface lies one of the oldest unsolved archaeological mysteries in North America, the lost fort of the Monongahela. It's a story that begins thousands of years before steel mills and football rivalries, when the land was home to a mysterious people whose entire civilization disappeared long before Europeans ever arrived. The Monongahela culture is something archaeologists still struggle to define. They lived in what's now southwestern Pennsylvania, northern West Virginia, and western Maryland between roughly 1000 and 1635 CE. They built circular villages surrounded by palisades, wooden walls that suggested they felt a need for protection. But who they were, who they feared, and what ultimately happened to them are questions that remain open to debate. The Lost Fort refers to an especially strange site discovered along the Monongahela River in the late 1800s. It was described as a massive fortified earthwork, larger and more complex than any known Monongahela village. Some early accounts said its walls stretched hundreds of feet, enclosing multiple concentric rings. Others claimed to see evidence of moats or trenches filled with burned debris, as if the site had been attacked or intentionally destroyed. Yet after those first reports, the fort vanished, literally. Modern archaeologists have never been able to locate it again. Part of the mystery stems from confusion over the original records. Maps from that period were inconsistent, and the descriptions vague. Some place the fort near the mouth of a small tributary that no longer exists due to river channel changes. Others believe it may have been destroyed by railroad construction in the late 19th century. There are rumors that early amateur diggers carted away artifacts and never documented them. The result is a kind of historical ghost, a major archaeological site that's been talked about for more than a century, but can't be proven to exist. When we look at the Monongahela culture as a whole, the Lost Fort fits into an even larger puzzle. Excavations at other sites reveal people who farmed corn and beans, hunted deer, and traded for exotic goods like shells and copper. Yet, they left no written language, no monumental architecture, and very few clues about their social structure.